at Central High School MDE office building in Jackson, Mississippi. This meeting of the Board of Education is being held today, Thursday, September 24th, 2020, at 10 a.m. via teleconference and video means pursuant to Mississippi Code annotated section 2541.5. Notice of this meeting was posted in accordance with state law and included the date, time, place, and purpose of the meeting and identified the location of the meeting available to the public. An audio recording is being made of this meeting, and minutes of this meeting will be recorded. This meeting is also being live streamed, and I'll remind you, if you have a cell phone, to please ensure that it is off, at least silent. I will say Dr. Carrie Wright is also present here to my left, here in Jackson, Mississippi, to participate in this teleconference meeting. We'll move to the announcement of the quorum. As I call your name, please state the location. Please state present and your location. Ms. Rosemary Alton.
I'm present in the boardroom in Jackson, Mississippi.
Ms. Nancy Collins.
Present, boardroom, Jackson.
Dr. Karen Elam.
Present, Oxford, Mississippi.
Dr. John Kelly.
I'm present, boardroom, Jackson, Mississippi.
Mr. Sean Suggs. Mr. Omar Jamil.
Present, Hernando, Mississippi.
And our latest addition to the board, Ms. Amy Zhang.
Present, Starkville, Mississippi.
Okay, and we'll introduce you a little more here in just a minute. I'm going to go back. I know Mr. Suggs was going to plan on joining us. He might have had an issue dealing with there at his facility and at the Toyota plant. So we'll keep an eye on his joining us. But we do have a quorum present. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have quorum present at the location stated for the purpose of conducting a meeting through teleconference and video means. The September 24th, 2020 board meeting is now called to order at 10:02 a.m. And since this meeting is a teleconference meeting, please identify yourself when asking questions, making comments, or making motions, and mute yourself at all those times to avoid background noise. I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I ask Dr. Kelly to lead us in the invocation. Please join me in saying the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we pause this morning to acknowledge you as the maker, the sustainer of life. We pause also to just thank you for the many blessings that you have afforded us over the last month. As we start this meeting, Father, we want to just thank you for the hard work that our teachers, school administrators, and parents all over this state are doing to care for and also to educate our children. We pray, Father, that you just put a hedge around them and protect them from the virus and anything else that is a threat to them. As we come to you today, Father, we acknowledge that there's so much happening around us. There is a pandemic that has robbed us of our way of life. We miss the fellowship and the socialization with our family and our friends. We just pray, Father, that you just get us back to some sense of normalcy, if that is your will. We pray, Father, that as we go through this agenda, that every decision that we make will be made with school children in mind first. Be with us and guide us in every deliberation. And if you were to do these things, we'll continue to give you the praise and glory that you so righteously deserve. It is these in all things that we ask in your Son's name, Jesus, and for his sake. Amen.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll move for approval of minutes of August 27th, 2020 board meeting and minutes of August 27th, 2020 student representative final interviews. Is there a motion?
So moved, Chair.
Okay. There's a motion and second. Any further discussion? Hear none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll go through the approval of the agenda. You have the agenda there before you and there's paper on your iPad. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If so, I'll entertain a motion to do so now. Okay, hearing none, are there any items on the consent agenda that members would like to pull out for discussion? So I'll entertain a motion to do so now. Okay, not seeing any, then we need to move for final approval of the agenda, as presented. Motion.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, agenda is approved as presented. We'll now move to the report of our state superintendent.
All right, good morning, and good to see everybody at the table. Several things, we've just spent another busy month. I wanted to back up, I didn't get a chance to also tell you about some presentations that I did last month, and there were some really national events that I was able to serve on a panel and do a presentation for. So the National Governors Association held a seminar around critical aspects to support pre-K through grade 3. So needless to say, Mississippi had a lot to say about that. And I was honored to be invited to the Chautauqua Institution that's in Chautauqua, New York. And their whole week was focused on what has worked in reforming, our conversation was what has worked in reforming Mississippi's education system. But the whole week was on education. In fact, Governor Bush spoke, I think, the Thursday. I was the keynote on Friday. The Hunt Institute sponsored what they call the homeroom, and it was with my colleague in Alabama and I were the two people that were hosted for that. And then we did a big kickoff for Teach Plus. And then this past month, the Reagan Institute Summit on Education was held, and I was a participant in that as well. Had a couple of interviews. The New York Times, there's an article on reopening schools that just came out, and so that they interviewed me for that, as well as NPR. Lots of meetings that have been held. The SLDS Governing Board met again. We're trying to get back on track, and we've got a new chair of our board. Patrick Sullivan is now the new chair of the SLDS Governing Board, and he also is the executive director of the SWIB board, so he's real excited about having that role. I have held, I can't even tell you how many different telehealth meetings. It's interesting to see how much of an interest this has sparked around the state, from our health officer, our state epidemiologist, to the Medical Association, the Pediatric Association, UMMC, and most recently, the Family Practitioners or Family Physicians Organization. So everybody's very interested in this. So we're forming a small group to get that going. Teachers Advisory Council, I met last week. I'll meet again this week or the next week. Superintendent's Advisory was just yesterday. The Mississippi Children's Health Council is up and running again, and so that's really good to know. Mary Courier, who used to be the health officer, is chairing that group. And then we held a webinar for superintendents regarding our second installment, and really proud of this document. This is, as you know, there's a group of 9 superintendents that produced the first document, and it's 4 superintendents. It was written by superintendents and 4 superintendents, and we were able to get a consultant to work with it this time. So these are for the months September, October, November. The first one, as you know, was June, July, and August. And so they'll do one of these every 3 months, and it's a great, I'll pass it around. It's really proud of it. Nathan's team worked on it along with the superintendents, and it's a really reflective document for superintendents to use or principals to use, like where are we now, what's working, what do we still need to be working on in a variety of areas. So very, very proud of this and proud of the work from the department. So a couple of updates. I'm going to do one briefly, and I'll have John do his updates on the Mississippi Connects implementation. We're getting a lot of questions around assessment and accountability and what we're going to do this year. And I think I've been very clear that I feel that there is a need for us to administer statewide assessments. I think that to go beyond 2 years is not a realistic piece. I think we need to know what the state of education is in Mississippi. And we've come so far and been recognized nationally so many different ways, and most recently with Quality Counts as the 2nd most improved state in the nation. And the Southern Regional Education Board just came out with their report, and we are outperforming almost every single state in our region. So we've got a lot on the line. Children do, parents do. And we want to make sure that we have as much information as we can to make the best decisions that we can around what's needed in education. So that's going to inform professional development, that's going to inform resource allocation, et cetera. That being said, I do think, and we are in conversations with our technical advisory committee, I do think this is a conversation that we need to have about decoupling accountability from assessment. I think every time people think of assessment and accountability, they think of it as one and the same. And it's really two different pieces. There's the assessment part of it, which is how are kids doing, how well are they doing, what do we still need to work on? And then there's the accountability model where we put in things like graduation and growth and acceleration. And so knowing that we've got the variety of implementations that we have around the state, some all virtual still, some in person, and some are doing a hybrid, I think we need to talk about what that would look like if we decouple accountability from the assessment piece. So I'm going to send an email out to all the superintendents and principals and teachers later on this afternoon or tomorrow, and just giving them my rationale for why we're doing that. I know recently Secretary DeVos has come out and said that the Education Department is not going to be looking at any waivers, but we'd made this decision long before she came out and made the statement about not looking at any waivers. So what's going to happen? We don't know. All the professionals are telling us that flu season's going to arrive, and this could very well get worse in terms of illnesses, and so we have no idea where we're going to be in spring, but we do know we need to know where our children are. So I just wanted you to know that that I feel very strongly about that, and I'm not alone. There's many of my colleagues around the nation feel strongly about that as I do. So I just wanted to bring that up to you so that you would know what is happening. So John, I'm going to ask you if you would to come to the table. I want you to give the board an update on where we are with Senate Bill 3044 and where we are with House Bill 1788. And then following that, I'll have, we'll talk about the report card.
That is unfair and inaccurate. And I hope we will at some point arrive at being more fair and accurate to witnesses that the current majority wishes to bring in here and make.
Where is this coming from?
That sounded like a hearing.
We're certainly in Congress.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Dr. Wright. Thank you, Dr. Dean, and the board members for a chance to talk to you again.
John, I've just been told to speak directly into my mic, so you wish I wasn't. So
all right.
Thank you.
Hopefully that's better. Okay. Well, thank you for an opportunity to talk with you all again about Mississippi Connects. I will be brief. There's been a lot going on. And talk about both SB 3044 as well as the House Bill 1788 about connectivity. So when we last talked, we were getting orders placed by the districts. We have had 148 districts out of the 150 participating, getting their applications approved and getting their orders placed. That was quite a lift on their part, as well as Dr. Gavin and her team. And so a lot of people put a lot of hard work into getting that done. And it all got done, which is pretty great. We continue to, again, our numbers are overall about 390,000 devices are being delivered to the students and teachers in the state of Mississippi. The exciting thing is, if you can see the picture on the screen, those are actual Chromebooks
in the United States, in possession of our partner on the Chrome and Windows side, CDWG. This is their warehouse outside of Chicago, and these are the first devices to come in. We have received, in the midst of I would call it a global drought on Chromebooks, we have 90%.
Chromebooks, we have 90% of our order on the ground in the United States right now.
It's fantastic.
We have more work to do on the Windows, Macs, and the iPads, but having 90% of the Chromebooks in our possession. So there's a few more shipments going to be coming in next month. And these are going to be processed through the facilities in Chicago and Las Vegas by CDWG, and then again further processed and prepped for delivery to the districts starting next week. So the end of next week, these first Chromebooks will be arriving while, again, it's not taking pleasure in the sufferings of others, but we are happy to see that there are, amidst troubles across the country and across the world, that we are actually pulling this off and getting these delivered. And so it was described to me by somebody outside of the department as the largest ed tech initiative in the country, and we are killing it in terms of getting this stuff delivered. So I think there's a lot to celebrate, but the real celebration comes when these devices are in the hands of our kids starting next week. So
I want to echo that, John. I was on a conference call and with a national consultant, and the consultant's comments were,
Mississippi's orders have been placed ahead of California's. And then the pause was, let that sink in. Mississippi's orders were placed ahead of the orders of California. So CDWG has really put us at the top of the supply chain. And John, I want to thank you for your constant work with that, because that's not an insignificant accomplishment of where we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people working really hard at this.
Absolutely.
And I think it was just, we had a great opportunity with SB 3044 to do something unprecedented in the state of Mississippi, and something that hasn't been attempted in this country for over a decade, and we were able to pull it off, not in a year or two of preparation and planning, but we pulled it off in about 6 weeks. So there was a lot that went into that. So the next phase will be another exciting process with Dr. Gavin and her team, which will be to start the reimbursement. That begins next week on the 1st. That window opens and closes then two months later on December 1st. So while the people working on getting these devices delivered are going to be working hard, the districts will be working just as hard to get all the documentation done and processed and into us so that we can reimburse them before the money is swept at the end of December. So that's another big window coming up. The second thing is, which we're talking about later today, is that we're working on HB 1788. We have our methodology on the agenda for today to discuss, and an authorization to disperse the $50 million to districts and the independent schools and the Choctaw tribal schools. This will impact 75% of the households in the state with support through the districts, independent schools, and the Choctaw Nation. And then the next step will be transitioning to going from the devices being configured and delivered. We'll be then pushing toward our efforts around professional development to really help make sure that these devices begin to impact curriculum instruction. And we were talking with the communication teams yesterday about this really is about Mississippi Connects is not just about connecting kids with devices to the internet. This is about connecting teachers to students through this technology that will enable the education and instruction and the growth of our students, the excellent outcomes that Dr. Wright mentioned a moment ago, to continue amidst the pandemic with all of the various disruptions that has caused. And so that is my update. If you have any questions or thoughts that you'd like to.
Yeah, I know you mentioned 1788. It's actually in the consent. So if you could go ahead and cover that now, because there's not a discussion item.
So
discuss the methodology and.
Of course, sure. So quickly, there are two main thrusts that we are pushing with the methodology. The first, as the bill outlines, is to look at who in the state is not connected, who in their homes has low or no reliable internet connection. And so we looked at the problem of why people don't have a connection, and there's primarily two reasons. One is they're in a rural or remote part of the state in which where there might not be providers or broadband available. The second reason is affordability. So if they're a low-income family, they may not be able to afford services even if they are available. So the high-level view of the methodology, and I'm happy to dig on the details, are that we looked at the households based on the FCC data that are described in statute, and then the free and reduced lunch data that we have from our schools, and then crosswalk that so that we gave equal weight to both factors, and then basically distributed evenly the $50 million by those households, so that a district that is very rural and very poor will see proportionally more money. A district that is higher income and its families are higher income and are closer to the city, they will have less money per household. But it's a distribution that we weighed everybody evenly in the model, provided based on the strength of the factors such as free and reduced lunch percentages and the isolated homesteads that don't have good internet connection. So that was the methodology. Low income and lack of connection, and we weighted them equally and distributed the money evenly to all households that we could see across the state, from the independent schools, the tribal schools, as well as, of course, the public schools.
So the bill
Can I ask a question about that?
Please. Just go ahead.
For low-income families and families in areas that are very rural where internet is not available to them,
Mm-hmm.
what happens, what does that look like once you get money in the hands of those families? If a family has money
Mm-hmm.
and there's no internet service in the area,
Right.
how do they get service even with money in hand?
Sure, so that's a great question. So one thing I would just want to clarify is that the funding goes directly to the school district and or the independent schools and tribal schools based on the households that need assistance.
Got it?
How they have approached the problem of getting internet connection, partly it will be if we can get a connection to the families by providing a hotspot and a data plan to them would be one approach. Other approaches have been we want to push towers out into the community through partnership with the telcos. Other strategies include strengthening the resources at the school or on a school bus that could get the kids to the internet if the internet can't get to the kids. So they've looked across their households, across the geography and the sort of the ecosystem that they have in place, and are adapting their response to what is possible here and now, while also considering what long-term would be strategies at the state with the Public Service Commission and others who are looking at to try and strengthen internet overall for the state. So we want to get the kids to the internet if we can't get the internet to the kids, and they're using the funds in a flexible way to accommodate that either way, or in some cases both ways.
Thank you for that. I had one other question. You mentioned that Mississippi was ahead of California in terms of the process and getting the Chromebooks ordered and all of that. How did that happen? Was that a function of the legislature acting so quickly, or us getting our order placed ahead of most other states? How did that happen?
Sure, and I'll try to be brief about this because I could go on and on about this. So to be brief, there's two key words in the SB 3044, bulk purchasing. So the way we structured our program was that we were going to consolidate all orders from all districts and use that to drive pressure through, in the case of CDWG, a reseller, but while also working with their supply chain, right? So we were talking with HP, we were talking with Lenovo, we talked to Dell, we talked to Intel. So we were looking up the entire stream towards where these devices originate. And so we used the bulk purchasing power of the legislation to drive that through.
Okay,
and
that makes sense.
And then the second thing was, of course, the structure of the program to get that information in from the districts, and so that we could do that very, very quickly. So we did want to get ahead of as many as possible. But the one thing I'd say is that our success was in part reinforced by the fact that not only do we have devices here, those are our devices, by the way, those are not just random generic devices, those are ours, is that that we've heard from districts up to even yesterday, where they found that the districts who purchased independently or had planned to buy independently found that their vendors with the supply chain could not provide those units. So they were trying to get onto our contract to get our support so that the devices would arrive in their district. So I think that validated our approach, both in terms of the news that Dr. Wright shared from a national perspective, but also within our own state, that districts in conversations with their vendors realized they would not be able to get the devices in hand in time to be reimbursed, and so they called us up and said, can you take our order and add it to what we've already ordered? And we've been working with the vendors to make sure that that happens. So that's, I think, hopefully gets to your question.
Brilliant strategy. Kudos.
I'm sorry.
No,
Let's
go
see.
ahead.
Two questions. You mentioned, how many households did you say this would impact?
It's about 75% of the households.
75%. That's pretty significant in this state. And then my second question / comment is, are we sending out notices to the legislature to let them know where we are and what the process is and what have you, to keep them apprised of what's going on?
Yes.
So yes and yes.
Okay.
So Pete's been doing that on a regular basis. In fact, and today at the ELBO hearing that I have this afternoon, we're going to be bringing them up to date, the entire ELBO group up to date today.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know we don't know now, but
that would be to know what the breakdown would be of children and what approach they would use, whether it's traditional,
Sure. So I think that part of that touches on Dr. Oakley's side of the house, where we were reaching out to the districts before startup of school.
Or startup of school to get information from them about their strategies. Though, of course, we always knew that if a student or a classroom or teacher or the football team or whoever became diagnosed, that these kids would be moving in and out.
Sure.
So we imagine that this would be a fluid situation. And as Dr. Wright mentioned earlier, we don't really know where this is all going to play out in the fall. As we proceed, move through the beginning of the school year. So we do have information from the districts on their strategy or their plans. And then, of course, I think that it's fair to say that between the attendance side and the academic side and also the work that we're doing, we're getting a sense, and also just general information we're gathering about the shifts that are happening. And in fact, I was talking with the superintendent yesterday about I've got now a whole bunch of kids in my high school who are going to be going home for a couple of weeks. When are these devices coming? And I was pretty excited to say that they were going to be likely arriving, in the beginning of October for that particular district, and which I think is going to be a relief to some of them. So this is a very fluid situation, and we are as an agency, staying on top of it from a number of different directions.
Thank you.
So I also want you to know that when we put the methodology together, we met with Chairman Bounds and Chairman Delano, I think is the chairman, but we met with them directly because they are the authors of 1788, and to make sure that they were good with what we had done in terms of the methodology before we went any further. And they were very happy with what had been done, and we'll be delivering the printouts and things of that to them as soon as that's approved. And the other thing, Dr. Kelly, I think you were asking a little bit too about the connectivity issue, and part of the feeling was that to give the money to the LEAs because they're closer to the situation, and then it's up to that team at the local level then to decide how best to use that in their own situation, because every district has things that are a little bit different.
Okay. And I've been asked as you're talking if you could just lean into the microphone a little bit better so that the folks who are listening online can hear. And we've covered. Yes, sir, Mr. Suggs.
Can you guys hear me? This is Sean.
Yep.
I apologize, Steve. I've been trying to connect. John and the team, what an outstanding operation that you all have put together. And this picture warms my heart as a manufacturing guy. I'll just start by saying that. I love seeing pallets and fork trucks and all that stuff. It makes me happy to see this. My question to you very quickly is, you mentioned that we were almost 100%. What's to stop us from getting the other 2 or 3 districts that are still out there? What are your thoughts?
So the 2 districts that are not on the list, one is the Mississippi School for Math and Science, and they declined to apply. And then the second one was the Coahoma Early College High School that was unable to meet the application deadline in statute. So that we did work as hard as we could to get them all across the finish line, but once we passed the threshold of September 1st, the law kicked in and we were unable to accept any additional applications or to continue to work to get them into the program. So we worked hard and we got to 148 out of 150. So I of course, we all have regrets. I got Frank Sinatra playing in my head right now. I wish we could have gotten them all, but we got to 148 and I feel pretty good about that.
Excellent job.
Yep, and I won't beleaguer the point. We'll move on. But I said it the last couple of meetings, and I'll say it again. I mean, this is a humongous effort on the part of the department, Dr. Wright, John, your team. I mean, it's just to think that this bill was passed on July the 3rd, and we met on August the 6th to vote on a competed RFP, process, an invitation with 4 respondents. A team put that together, read the responses, made a decision, put it before us, issued the solicitation, the purchase orders, came in, signed up the districts. I'll just, it's close enough. I recognize Mississippi School for Math and Science. We'll figure out something for Coahoma, but close enough to 100%, in my book. And what I've been just like really beating the table over is these devices that you see up there, they're all going to be delivered to all 390,000 students by November 20th. By November 20th. So from July the 3rd to November 20th, any entity, if this was their, day job and this was the only thing that they did, would be massively challenged from a logistical, perspective regardless. I mean, just to do something like that in the time. And oh, by the way, we have other things to do. This was just a, lagniappe on top of our, day job. So, man, kudos. And I think, lots of head nodding here, and we'll continue to sing your praises and keep at it. And like I said, after November 20th, and once these are deployed and cranked up and we work through the kinks, we're going to have a big old party somewhere. So great work.
So just two last quick thoughts. I hope you don't mind. One is that most of the devices will be delivered in October. The few will get them at the door before the end of this month, and then the rest will be in October, with a few that will probably stragglers into November. We are right now on schedule to be well ahead of the November 20th deadline, perhaps even 2 weeks ahead of that, and having them all done. So we're ahead of schedule, if you will, and processing on the CWG side about 5,000 units a day, processing those through.
Well, and at our October meeting, let's get a new timeline update. So I know you have a better clarity, because I think that's a red letter day.
We might be most of them delivered by the time we get to the October board meeting. And then the second thing I would say is that on the communication side is this picture is just one of many. We want to get pictures across the entire life cycle of these devices, from the picture of the plane landing in the United States and all the way down to the child receiving the device. We are working to gather some information and be able to show the story and tell the story of what's happening and how we're beginning to lay the foundation for what is the real transformation, which is coming on the instructional side. This is just these are just means to an end, and the goal here really, of course, is education. But anyway, thank you very much. Speaking of day jobs, I'm sorry. Yep.
Elam?
Please go ahead.
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to congratulate MDE on the really massive accomplishment that they've pulled off or about to pull off. But I did want to ask one question, and that is, and you don't have to go into a great deal of detail, but I'll just say, is MDE, what do I want to say, satisfied with what is they put in place for the accountability of the LEAs on this whole, just, the expenditure of the $50 million? You don't have to go into detail, but I just want to be assured that there's a great deal of comfort, I guess I'll say, with the accountability you've put in place.
So I would say that maybe Dr. Wright or even Dr. Gavin would want to speak to this more, but I would say that yes, the way that we've structured this is to be very much hand in glove with the districts to really understand what's happening with them. I would also mention that the state auditor is here, or their firm they've hired to work through this process alongside us to watch as we're moving forward. So I believe there's a great deal of eyes on this project, and there's a great number of people who are interested in making sure it's going. So I would say that it is complicated and complex, but there are conversations ongoing with the districts, and we are looking at the data that are coming from the vendor, looking at the data coming from the districts, and being very careful. And right now we have not yet spent a penny in the sense of reimbursement. So the money's still here, and this is really where I think the hard work coming ahead of us from an administrative side will be to administer the reimbursement in a way that meets the expectation, Dr. Elam, that you're mentioning, and having that accountability. But I don't know whether Dr. Wright.
So Dr. Elam, one of the things that the districts have to do is they submit to us what it is that they needed, and that's what we put together with what John then ordered. But the other part of it is, before they get any kind of reimbursement, they have to submit their receipts to us, and they have to be allowable expenses. And then John's team and Felicia's team are going to be having to go over every single one of those to make sure that they are allowable before the money is even released. And as far as 1788 is concerned, they have to submit and Felicia, you correct me if I'm wrong, but they've got to submit I'm going to call it a grant proposal, if you will, to us about how they spend the money for connectivities, to Dr. Kelly's question. And then they've got to have a plan for doing that. And then we will release them, only reimburse them once we get the receipts back from them that they have spent the money on what they said they were going to spend it on. So we've built in as much accountability as we possibly can. And we know that there's going to be a lot of reporting that's going to have to be put out. We've got a report that's due October the 1st to the legislature. So we're working on that as we speak, because that's next week. And then there will be upcoming reports that we submit to them as well.
And I think over the next 3 years, we will be continuously working and revisiting the decisions they've made, the plans they've got, to make sure that we're continuing to work with them. So this becomes not a one and done, but rather an ongoing, partnership, collaboration, communication between us and the districts to make sure this is really moving toward the goal of helping children learn. And that's ultimately what all this is about. So we'll continue to work with them on that.
Great. Any other questions?
Dr. Elam?
Dr. Elam, another question?
No, that's it.
Okay, great. Anything else?
I've got two recognitions. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, do me turn it over to the MSRC? Are you ready for that?
Sure. Go ahead.
So, Dr. Dean, you mentioned sort of our day jobs. The work of OTSS continues apace. Deborah Donovan has been a great sort of right-hand woman to help with a lot of the work on the MSIS modernization, as well as the MSRC, the Mississippi 60s report card, and we have version 3.0 ready to release. It's actually released earlier this week, but we want to share that with you. And walk you through the improvements we've made. Her team has been working very hard to make sure this is done, and this is really foundational for the work that we want to do with our modernization effort, and it all really does tie together. And I'm going to turn it over to Deborah to give a quick review.
Perfect.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good morning. I will keep this quite brief, but I wanted to highlight some of the changes and the improvements we've been able to make to the report card. And you may be thinking, we didn't have accountability or assessment. Why am I even looking at the report card this year, right? But what our office did once we, realized that our data lift this year was going to be much lighter than in a normal year, we pivoted to take advantage of that and put our resources towards making more technical updates to the website. So I won't go through a demo of every new feature and function, but to know that we've redesigned the look and feel of the website, given it a refresh. We've cut the code by 2/3 out from the back end, and if you, in coding, less is more. That means there's less things to break. There's less things to go wrong, and it's easier to update and maintain and add more functionality in the feature. So our technical team has worked really hard on that. The one item that I really want to feature that is the most functional item is a new search and compare feature on the website. So on the home page now, I can click and enter any schools or districts that I want to see side-by-side comparisons of in the state. So let's say I want to look at, this will give me a few results to look at. Start with North. So I can select up to 5 schools or districts. And you'll see it, you've got the grades listed at a glance there. Come down. Okay, these are the ones that I want to select. So go to compare selected schools and districts. One thing I will mention, for 2019-20 school year, if you're looking at information, it does have a nice information block or disclaimer on the website to explain the lack of data for the 2019-2020 school year. Let's look at a year that we do have more data. As I scroll down, now I can see side-by-side comparisons of every component on the website. So if I'm a school or a district that knows these are the schools and districts that I usually benchmark myself against, I can do a custom search and comparison of those schools and districts side-by-side for all of the components that are listed on the report card. We've made some other technical enhancements. You'll see there's data is listed in these card formats with explanations of the data right on the screen. Those are enhancements we made for mobile viewing. We have addresses linked over to Google Maps. We have an enhanced data map for those of you board members. If you want to print and save off like side-by-side comparisons on our heat map function, you can now do that. The summary reports are auto-generated now, as well as myriad other tiny little enhancements that we've made to the site. But I just want to make sure that everyone keeps reporting and accountability of our data at the forefront. We reported as much data as we could for 2019-20. We believe we should be as transparent as possible. And as always, we always look forward to the opportunity to solicit further ideas for the website. Thank you.
Just awesome work as usual. I think this is, just so user-friendly and easy to follow, but I also think that we probably understand a lot of these variables, particularly in the accountability system, better than most folks. I hope we do. But one of the things I would ask is around marketing. Like, how are we pushing this out other than just saying we have a report card meeting ESSA requirements? Two entities that I think should I would like proactively set up a a Zoom call with MEC and the MEDA, the Mississippi Economic Development Association, because that's who cares. I mean, when you're trying to recruit businesses, I mean, parents care, you know, a lot of other people care, but in addition to them, when you're trying to recruit businesses to your community, this is the kind of thing that they want to be able to point to and say, you know, here is why you should come to our community. So getting these tools into the hands of those folks, I think, would be a good next step. And so you know, just a recommendation. You know, I'd like to see you follow through with that. But second, since we brought up MSIS, I know this is you know, kind of a pain point with the budget right now, but this was supposed to be the first year of the funding. I think, you know, $3.5 million was what we were expecting. Where is that in terms of the budget? Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah.
So there are a couple sources of funds that we've tapped into to keep the project going. The MSIS modernization effort that Deborah Donovan is also leading for us for OTSS. The money has been coming primarily out of the SLDS grant we have, the FY15 grant that we've got another no-cost extension to keep using the funds that are available in that grant program to keep moving forward. You'll remember that we have a contract in place with a group called UPD to work on documenting our current state, working on our process and maturity or process improvement, as well as then planning out and designing the future state so we can move towards that. So we've been able to
But with our budget, I think what Dr. Dean Worley wants to know, is it in our budget for this year? Is the $3.5 million in
Oh, no, we did not get funded by the legislature. Sorry.
Trying to knit it together.
So we're stitching
exactly
together
right.
with available funds that we can to keep moving forward.
Okay.
Is that all? Oh,
Yep.
sorry.
Any other thoughts or questions, comments? Okay.
Okay, I've got two recognitions I want to give. And Omar, I hope you're paying attention because the first one is you. We want to congratulate Omar for being named a National Merit semifinalist. He is only one of 25 students in the DeSoto. Yep. He is only one of 25 students in the DeSoto County School District to be named a semifinalist. You can hear Mr. Zhang. He's clapping for you, Omar. And we also love that Omar's high school principal arranged for his elementary school teachers to surprise his mother with the news.
Oh,
she is a speech language pathologist at the school, and we thought you would enjoy seeing this moment as well.
We got a call from the hospital. Mr. Johnson wanted us to make a call. And we thought, come on.
That's sweet. That's so sweet. Congratulations,
Congrats,
Omar.
Omar.
Yeah, we're really proud of you. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And last week, the MDE communication team won 4 major awards, including Best of Show, which is the ultimate award that you want to win, from the Southern Public Relations Foundation. The awards were judged by professionals in Nashville, and they recommend the top work produced by communications professionals in Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, and Mississippi. The team earned awards for their work that raised awareness about the state's higher expectations for third grade reading, Mississippi's historic NAEP gains, all the achievements in the superintendent's annual report, and for the Teach Mississippi campaign, which was designed to elevate teachers and attract people to the profession. So to Pete, Patrice, Corey, and Jean, hats off to our communications team. That's outstanding, outstanding work.
And that is
Great, yeah, awesome, very well deserved.
Awesome. Well, very well deserved. Congratulations. Okay, I've got a few quick updates from the chair. Just real quickly, I met with Representative Bell on Monday and Tuesday, and on Tuesday with members of the the Department of Education's team to talk about some of his ideas around workforce development and particularly around career and technical education, and a bill that he's been talking about now for a couple of years, and in ways that we could work together. I thought it was a really useful, productive meeting. I think you just had to kind of talk about some of the things where we had agreement, things that were in federal law that might not necessarily be something we could support, that what was currently in law and what was the state board's regulatory policy. So there's more to come on this. I mean, we're continuing to develop that relationship, but I thought it was really worth the time and effort just to get everything on the table and figure out how we can move forward. As I've said before, and I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it. Career and technical education needs to be a bigger part of what we do. We are a function and a creature of laws. It's the state law, the federal law, and our regulations, state board regulations around executing those laws. And so, we simply just reflect, what we are told to do. And currently it's set up, where it's sort of upside down. Maybe 3 or 4% of our discretionary budget goes to career and technical education. While, you have a public demand that's well in excess of 50%. Just imagine, I don't, never seen a poll, but that want more of this career and technical education in the classroom from what we see. So, as we develop our policies and we work with the legislature, we want to listen, but at the same time, where we disagree or we think philosophically it doesn't represent our school districts, we'll say that too. And that's kind of how we walked away from that meeting. So I thought it was very, very positive. Also want to welcome Amy Zhang. She is our newest student representative. She is attending her first board meeting. And Amy, if you can hear us, would you just please just give us kind of a background of who you are?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Zhang. I am a junior at the Mississippi School of Math and Science right now. I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to serve as the student representative because I think it's imperative that our voices are heard in the education system. A little bit about me. Right now, I am part of MSMS's speech and debate team, and our first tournament is tomorrow, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm also part of MSMS's newspaper and their math competition team. And those are two really great opportunities that I only have at MSMS. So I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to go to MSMS and experience all these wonderful things. So that's me.
Great. Welcome.
Great. Welcome aboard, and I know in just a minute we're going to turn to you and Omar for some additional comments, but we welcome you. We're excited to know you, and we look forward to your input as we move forward. And thanks again to the folks who worked very hard to get all the applications, go through them all, do all the interviews, and get us to that point. So very much appreciate that. Next, I've got two other things. I've got a resolution here from my good friend Sean Suggs that I'd like to read. This is Sean's last meeting, sad to say, but Sean's got some awesome things going on for him, and the professional way that he's held himself has been recognized not just by us, but by the big shots in Toyota, and they're stealing them away from us in Mississippi. But the mountain he's climbing is just so admirable, and it's been a pleasure to know you, Sean, and look forward to watching your career continue to grow. But I'll just quickly read this resolution that we've drafted in the state board. Whereas House Speaker Philip Gunn appointed Mr. Sean Suggs in 2017 to the Mississippi State Board of Education as an at-large representative, and whereas Mr. Suggs has 6 years of service with Toyota, during which time he was responsible for relationship building with the state of Mississippi, economic development entities and organizations across Mississippi, and whereas Mr. Suggs served as professional link between Toyota, the citizens, the local governing bodies and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas Mr. Suggs led the advancement of the Toyota way in the community through personal service, and whereas Mr. Suggs served as a board member of the Create Foundation, Community Development Foundation, Renaissance Bank Board of Directors, Health Care Foundation, Northeast Mississippi, Mississippi Economic Council, and whereas Mr. Suggs served as chairman of the Mississippi Public Education Forum and put public education at the forefront of his administration, and whereas Mr. Suggs established the Toyota Experience and Training Center in Blue Springs, Mississippi, and whereas Mr. Suggs has brought his years of business acumen and experienced leadership skills and commitment to the role on the Mississippi State Board of Education to advocate for Mississippi's public schools and the role they play in career development and preparation of children for their next phase in life. Therefore, be it resolved that on this, the 24th day of September 2020, the Mississippi State Board of Education recognizes Mr. Sean Suggs for his contributions to the board and the advancement of education in Mississippi. Mr. Suggs, got comments for us? Surely.
Can he tell us a little bit about what he's going to be doing?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can hear you.
First of all, thank you very much. Man, I hope I don't get choked up here. I'm gonna try. I just want to first thank Speaker Gunn for believing in me and giving a manufacturing guy an opportunity. I want to second thank my fellow board members. You all may not know this, but every time you speak, I'm learning a ton. Your questions, your comments, your suggestions. I have learned so much in my short period of time on the board, and I've tried my best to embrace it as much as I possibly could. I also want to thank the entire MDE team. What a superb team of outstanding leaders, the best of the best. And to Dr. Wright for your leadership and guidance, not listening to the decibels, but focusing on the deed with your priorities of all students proficient. Every student graduates, every child has access, every school has effective teachers and leaders, every community effectively using world-class data systems. What a great example that John gave us earlier this morning. And every district meeting and achieving a C or greater or higher. I wrote those priorities down when I first came because I thought they were very good. It gave us a North Star. And this state is performing better than most states in the country. It has been so awesome to be a part of a winning team. And that's what we are, a winning team. Mississippi's a winning team. I'm very, very excited about that. I told Dr. Dean this story. I don't know if he remembers this story, but when I started becoming more proficient in my role on the board, I would every once in a while YouTube other boards across the nation to see what they were doing. And I would always come back and go, man, we're kicking butt. We're taking names, man. We're so much better than them. I mean, like, you know, and it would just get me to think that I see why they are benchmarking us now, because they've discovered what we've always known, that Mississippi is great, Mississippi is outstanding, and they're coming to us now for best practices. What a great story to tell for us. I just want to thank each and every one of you for allowing a manufacturing guy to come into your lives. I hope I've added some value, and this will be an experience that I'll never forget. Thank you very much.
Man, so cool.
So cool.
Thanks,
One question we all have is, please tell us about your next adventure in life. Where's the?
Yes, so I'll be at our headquarters office in Plano, Texas. It's hard to believe that in a month I'll be in Mississippi for 7 years, and I've had such a great time here. As you all know, Dr. Wright and I have a kindred bond, being a Marylander. So, you know, we're both from the East Coast originally, but I will be moving to the great state of Texas. My title will be Chief Social Innovation Officer, and for philanthropy and diversity and inclusion, et cetera. More enterprise-wide role. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And I'll keep you all posted. I promise I'll stay in touch.
Yeah.
Good,
So cool.
good.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations, Sean. Congratulations, Sean.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
We could go on. Any other comments? Man, so proud, and yeah, please do keep us posted, Sean. Thank you for your service. Well,
Thank you very much.
You know, the accolades keep on rolling. I was informed yesterday. I was copied on an email that was sent to Dr. John Kelly. It comes from Robert Hull, who's the president and CEO of the National Association of State Boards of Education. Let me tell you about NASB. It's a big deal. It's our version, of the nationwide, all state Board of Education members, represented from, most all 50 states, thousands of other members, just, would come together, and their influence on education policy is profound. They can get a meeting with Senator Alexander or Secretary DeVos and really influence the direction of ed policy at a national level. So they're kind of a big deal. I would really pleased to get this email it was for John, but I was copied. Dear John, each year NASB gives the Distinguished Service Award to members of state boards for their outstanding service to public education. This is the highest award that NASB can bestow on a State Board of Education member. It's my pleasure to inform you that you have been selected as the 2020 Distinguished Service Award winner, which will be presented during our virtual conference, which is great and cool enough, and we're going to applaud in a minute. But here's what I love when Dr. Kelly responded, of course, in his usual humble and grateful tone, just as humble as he could be. Thank you for this email. There are so many of my colleagues around this country who would equally qualify for this award, and knowing this award makes that even that much more special. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, Dr. Kelly, congratulations on well deserved, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I want to acknowledge before this group that my nomination came from you. They need to know that, but we appreciate it, and it is quite an honor. Some of the folks that have received this award before me have really done outstanding stuff for education nationwide, so I'm just humbled to be in that company.
Yep, well deserved, and again, it's a big deal to be, once again, Mississippi is recognized for its leadership role across the United States of America from national organizations. So, well done. Okay, with that, we'll now move.
One other thing
yes,
I should say is that this is not public yet, and NASB.
Well, it is now.
I'll jump on that grenade. It'll be announced in October. So I wanted to make sure I, prep the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're proud of you, Dr. Kelly.
That's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Y'all keep it quiet.
Won't say a word.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So now we'll move to the report of the student representatives.
Omar.
Hello, State Board. Just a quick update. So as I mentioned previously, my school is hybrid, both virtual and in-person learners. So that kind of gives me a unique opportunity to see what's working in all aspects, just given our COVID situation. And even then, I've still been talking to people from all across the state, both teachers and students, friends alike, to see what's really working for them, given some are completely virtual, some are completely in school, and some are hybrid as well. And also, as previously mentioned, given connectivity issues, given state test issues, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of issues that kind of need clarification. But specifically from my end, with the teachers I've been talking to, what they really worry about is what's going to be happening with the state tests. And I know that's still being discussed between us, but clarification on that, I think, does need to be given to teachers and administrators across the state, given that that is a big test or a big series of tests that kind of marks what schools are doing well and what schools need improvement. And I know we did super well last year, and I want to see us do super well again this year, but given everything with virtual and in school, there's going to be a lot of discrepancies in the data, I would feel. So I think maybe some more research on like how we can tackle that issue does need to be implemented. But otherwise, from both the teacher and student and administrator end, we want to see what other online programs can be implemented for online school given that some programs are just a headache for all parties alike. Of course, there wasn't as much time to establish a program and get teachers prepared and get students prepared alike. But there's just a consistency and struggle for both teachers and students alike. So maybe just going to the future, giving teachers and students technological prep work, just in case something like this ever does happen again, or just in case online school does become a semi-permanent option for students. But just searching through the rest of the country for what other schools and what other states are using programs that really work for them, that could definitely be something that we look into, given that MDE does communicate with other state boards all the time and see what works best for us and see what works best for them and what's not working. But that is one of the bigger issues, at least within my school district, that I've been noticing. And also, if there's a way for MDE to kind of reach out to local school boards and local school districts to see how we can help with keeping student and teacher motivation at a high, given that teachers are putting in so many hours outside of class to assist with their virtual students. It's unbelievable, honestly, just the dedication that teachers do have to their students to make sure that they succeed. But you can see that motivation does wane at points, given just how difficult some of the stuff that they're going through is. So just if we could find ways, potentially from other states and other school boards as well, with how to keep motivation high, given these circumstances, that'll probably be the biggest factor in determining how well we succeed as a state in education, is just making sure that each student, each teacher is being accounted for, both statistically, academically, and mentally. But that's it from my end.
So
Omar, one thing I want to let you know, we'll probably have a update on this next month. We have assembled a very large team that is already working on professional development, and we are working with a national consultant. When the devices were purchased, the vendors also offered a lot of free professional development for teachers and students. And so we're coordinating all of that under one big team. And MDE is leading that along with our national consultant and along with Barksdale Reading Institute. So we've got probably 150 people that are going to be working on this and are going to be providing virtual professional development. When we can do it in person, great. But know that that is a huge priority of ours. We've already been providing virtual professional development all spring and summer. And so those offerings are posted on our website. But this big team has come together to think about what can we do to help teachers and build their capacity, just like you said, with technology. And then they, in turn, then, how can we help the students then better do that? So we're on calls every week with other chiefs and other chief academic officers around the nation, and we're all sharing best practices. So all of this is being fed into, and will continue to be feeding into this team, and then for us to be able to help teachers. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I just wanted you to know that we are already working on it.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Omar. Amy, I know this is your maiden voyage, but anything to add to Omar?
Sure. I'll be talking about how students and teachers feel about just going back to school. So most of the students at MSMS are doing virtual school, and the most common complaint that I've heard is how long and tiring online classes are, and different concerns about the health effects of just staring at a screen for 8.5 hours a day. But the good news is juniors will be given the option to move back into the dorms in a few weeks. So we're excited to get the social aspect of our school life back. I also had the chance to interview a couple of teachers at MSMS about how they feel about transitioning to virtual learning. And I think their biggest complaint was that they just don't get to see students enough. There's just not enough of that human connection. But they also mentioned how after COVID, students will generally be more connected to the internet, and it's worth looking into providing, these online classes to students all across the state, especially in areas where students might not have a lot of opportunity to take AP or dual enrollment classes. So that's definitely something that teachers are looking into. A lot of my friends are going to school in person at my home school, which is Starkville High. And I recently took the SAT there, and I saw all the social distancing and safety guidelines that they have enacted. So I'm glad that they're staying safe and ensuring that in-person learning can be safe. So overall, we're disappointed that we're losing part of our school year, but it's imperative that schools continue to enact these safety guidelines so that hopefully we can get this under control soon.
Great.
Great. Thank you, Amy. Any thoughts or questions for our student representatives? Great. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate that. Next, we'll move to the report on the State Board of Education subcommittee meetings. I think the only one is the academic achievement, and I might be wrong with that. Ms. Rosemary?
Yeah, academic achievement met this morning. We we had two discussion items. Well, the first was really an update on activities from the department that center around professional development. They've spent a good bit of time with webinars. They've had 3 webinars. They've offered 100 sessions since July in other activities, and over 2,000 teachers have participated in those sessions. They've done a professional development on demand. They've had 2,200 views on that, and then they've done a lot of work with digital learning and supporting IEPs so that they can make sure that those are being taken care of. Using Canvas, there are 13 book studies with 600 participants, and they're offering 14 Canvas courses this fall with about 900 participants. So professional development is touching a lot of teachers out there, and they're plugging into it. The literacy instruction coaches across the state are continuing to work with digital models, hybrid models, whatever the model may be. They're continuing to work through that. Then the other item we had was the mastery plans for the state schools, the residential schools. And the first one was School of the Arts and Sciences. None of these schools have reduced their school days, the number of days that they're doing. MSA went to a 4x4 model with 94-minute classes. Amy referenced that with her math and science and how long the classes are, and it is a challenge for the students. But math and science, School of the Arts has matched their days, their schedule to Brookhaven schools because they collaborate with them a lot. But the other thing that they've done to be protective of their students is that they have grouped them in pods so that dance students stay with dance students, art students stay with art students, so that they're limiting the amount of interaction they have. At School for the Math and Science, they have full class days at 8 to 4:20. Right now, it's primarily virtual. They do have 10 students, I think he said, on campus because of the lack of internet in their home or hometown. And as Amy referenced, juniors will be coming in second term to stay, and then later on seniors will come in the next term. So they're doing what they can do to help their students. And of course, as Dr. McConnell pointed out, they know that during the academic day they can manage them. It's just when you have high school students in a dorm at night, will they follow all the protocols? So they're working
Yeah.
through all that. School for the deaf and blind present a little bit more difficult challenges. They have about half their, in the School for the Blind, they have about half of their students on campus. School for the Deaf has about 2/3 of theirs on campus, but they're letting parents make the decisions about whether or not their children come back to the campus. But in order to meet the needs of those students, because they do have unique challenges, for those students who are learning virtually or who are at home, they have used former staff members as mentors. They have one in the Northern District, one in the Central District, and one in the Southern District, working with those at-home students to make sure that they're meeting their needs and that they're staying up to speed and what have you. So these administrators have really done a terrific job, I think, of trying to meet the needs of their students, because they all do have unique situations, and they've used a lot of creativity and I think done a yeoman's job in meeting the challenges of their particular situation.
Ain't that the truth? Okay, thank you. I think any other subcommittees that met? I don't think that we had any, so thank you for that report. Okay, we'll move into the discussion now of what requires approval or discussion. Action item number 1, approval by the State Board of Ed to suspend strict compliance with the code sections and board policies for the 2020-2021 school year following Governor Reeves' proclamation of a state of emergency as a result of the impact of COVID-19 on school districts during the spring of 2020 in accordance with the code. Dr. Oakley.
Thank you, Dr. Dean. We're bringing forth this item today after discussion with staff from the IHL board and in consideration of the impact that COVID has had on the availability of administration of the ACT back in the spring of 2020. Given the lack of ACT administration broadly in the spring, particularly as we got later into the spring semester, we're recommending that the subscore requirement be waived for our SREB courses that are offered to seniors this school year. Many of those students aspire to attend college and after high school, but they may not have an ACT score at this point that would typically be used for enrollment in these courses. So what we're recommending is that as districts look at enrollment in these courses, we've already talked with the IHL board, and the IHL board has made a similar change to their policy that governs acceptance of these courses. But we're recommending that districts look closely to see, is there a fourth-year math course needed? So it's a transcript review, as well as noting that the student has earned 3 credits, both in English and or math, depending on which course they're looking at taking, noting that English 2 and Algebra 1 are both prerequisites, parent notification of this, and then looking at prior course performance, as well as MAP achievement level before they just plug a student into these courses. These courses are really designed for students who want to, again, go into post-secondary study. Maybe they need a little bump in their ACT score, but this potentially, for students that score an 80 or higher in these courses, they can go ahead and get into that freshman credit-bearing course without having to take a remedial course when they enroll in their post-secondary institution. So be glad to take any questions.
Questions? And obviously, you've worked with IHL to develop this. They have no objections. Questions, comments? Okay. Hearing none, under the Office of Chief Academic Officer, do I have a motion to approve item 1?
Chairman, I move approval.
Dr. Dean and Board, we're bringing forward today 3 grants for approval. The first grant is to award the grants for the 21st Century Community Learning Program. This grant period will be from October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2024. That is for the 21st Century Community Learning Centers program.
Okay. You have the backup in front of you or on your iPad. Any questions about that one? If not, just keep.
We're bringing forth for approval is for the McKinney-Vento Education for the Homeless Children and Youth Program. Grant period starting this year through January 31st of 2022. And the backup is attached for those awarding entities. And the last grant that we're bringing forth for approval today is the allocation for House Bill 1788. As Mr. Kramer discussed earlier, that methodology is in under the consent agenda. So based on that, we're bringing forth the actual districts and the private schools as well as the tribal units for approval. You'll see the allocation attached to come to the 50 million.
Yeah, and it seems a little, we're going to approve the methodology, but right now, we're assuming, I think the motion should be something along the lines of assuming that we,
Adopt the
yeah, 'cause
methodology.
I mean, I get the order, but it is logically out of order, so I'll separate that one out, and we'll have a separate motion. 2A and 2B.
So move.
Motions are a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? Okay. Any additional discussion? Hear none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And just again, not to complicate this, but I don't want Aaron to come slap me. The action item C, we're approving the authority of the department to approve the grants and distribution of funds from House Bill 1788 in the presumption that we'll also approve the consent agenda item down the line, which I know we're going to do. All right, so that's the motion. Is there someone that can move on that?
So move.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Okay, any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yeah, any opposed? Great, thank you. Motion carries. All right, carry on. All right, next is the consent agenda. All items are action items which require vote unless otherwise noted. So under the consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and J?
So move.
Okay, I've got a
second it.
motion from Dr. Elam and a second from Ms. Altman. Any additional discussion? Hear none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll move into the consideration of executive session.
I got it. I move the board consider making a close determination of the need to go into executive session.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to move into executive session and a second. Any additional discussion? Hear none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Executive session, the State Board of Education approved the appointment of a school finance officer to serve within the Office of School Financial Services, Angela Carr. We also approved the increase of salary for Ed Bureau Director 2 of Data Analysis and Reporting within the Office of Technology Strategic Services, Deborah Donovan. Okay, now we'll move into report on meetings attended. Any meetings attended virtually or in person? Okay, any approval required for attendance of meetings coming up? Still not traveling. All right, the other business is the October board meeting will be held on October 15th, 2020 at the Central High School building starting at 10 a.m. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion, is there a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Any objection? If not, we are adjourned.